Subset Games' Into the Breach did quite well in the year-end awards, having been picked as Strategy Game of the Year by quite a few outlets, and if you were like me, you might have decided to get it during the Steam winter sale, and then you play it and you find out it wasn't exactly what you thought it would be. The first thing you'll need to realize is this: Into the Breach may look like a standard tactical strategy game, but it's a much more unique experience than that. Into the Breach is actually a hybrid tactical puzzle game that has an almost chess-like quality to it. Now that is a very important distinction to make because most tactical games are focused on battlefield victory by defeating the opponent. But Into the Breach is not a game about defeating the enemy. Essentially, Into the Breach is a game that boils down to two things: protecting the power grid at all costs and managing the number of enemies on the map. It can be a pretty tough game. Sometimes even when you think you're doing amazingly well, the game can screw you over. It just happens. Perhaps you blame it on RNG. But before you blame the numbers, there's a few things you could do to have an easier time in the early part of the game. This video isn't about mid or late game advanced strategies or weapon combinations. I'll run through with you on the fundamental ideas of how to approach the battles in Into the Breach. Follow these and you'll totally blow past the early game. Now, it goes without saying that you need to protect the civilian buildings. That is your top priority. If you keep losing those civilian buildings, you lose power, and lose all power, you lose the game. It's as simple as that. So when you're thinking what to do in a turn, prioritize keeping the power grid up. Always try to think how you could stop the VEC from destroying civilian structures. Now this goes nicely into my second point. Ignore VECs attacking your mech. As long as you aren't totally overrun by VEC or your mech is webbed by it, I would say about up to 5-ish VEC is manageable. It's totally fine to ignore the VEC that are threatening your units. Use your units, move them to always look at ways you could stop the VEC from damaging the power grid. You only have a couple of moves, so don't waste it on non-threats. Point number 3. Use weapons that push enemies back, even if it means damaging your own mech. Now this is an interesting tip here. The artillery mech starting weapon is perfect for this. And something that many new players perhaps haven't considered is firing on your own mechs. In some situations, you'll find your mechs surrounded and webbed by the VEC. Using your artillery mech to fire on your own unit would mean sacrificing 1 HP of that unit to essentially push away the VEC threatening it. This is super useful and it frees up the mech for you to use more effectively to defend the civilian buildings. Consider this option if you need to free up your mechs or to create some space. Point 4. Use Max As Sheils. It's tough when you're outnumbered. You may not have the movement range to get up close to a VEC, so pushing them out of the way may be out of the question. In desperate times, you need to take desperate measures, like using your mechs that still have a good amount of HP to stop the VEC's attack on civilian buildings. This is of course especially for the VECs with projectile attacks. But don't sacrifice your mechs. Always have just enough HP to survive the round. You lose all the XP you've gained when you lose a mech and its pilot, so consider this option carefully before putting them in harm's way. Point number 5. Use your environment whenever possible. If you see water tiles next to a VEC, it's an insta-kill for any VEC you push into the water. This includes the powerful alpha VECs. So using environmental features that guarantee insta-kills is a very enticing option, whether it's water or mines. Things like mountain ranges are less effective, but they can be useful in the right situation. When you just need that 1 extra HP damage on the VEC, you could push the enemy towards them. Point number 6. Block the VEC spawn points. If you don't take out some of the whack, you'll find yourself outnumbered later on, and it's pretty challenging to protect the power grid when there's way more whack than your squad of mechs. So push the whack on the spawn points. Sometimes move your mechs on them. Stopping more whack from emerging will mean an easier job for you to manage the existing whack on the map. Point number 7. Use their attacks against them. Alpha versions of the whack are some of the most toughest opponents you'll face in Into the Breach, but they can be helpful with crowd control since many of them have powerful attacks that target more than a single tile. Use this to your advantage. Push the whack into these guys' target zone and the fight tilts ever so slightly in your favor. A final word of advice: take your time. Into the Breach is a turn-based game, so take all the time you need to weigh every single option before even you move any of your mechs. There is no penalty to playing at your own pace, but if you make the wrong move, you could throw away your entire game. That's some of the things you need to keep in mind when you play Into the Breach. Do you have any other approaches that I didn't mention here or might have missed? Tell me in the comments below. If you like this video, hit that like button, and if you like the videos that I make on strategy games, please consider subscribing to this humble channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.